to this See into the Future online discussion focusing on what businesses are looking for from graduates. My name is Kira Auskila and I'm Assistant Director of the British Council in Russia, and I'm actually also part of the British Council graduate scheme and the second cohort of graduates that the British Council has run. I'll be leading the discussion today with the help of a number of panellists from a selection of countries across the wider Europe region who will introduce themselves shortly. Today's discussion is part of an exciting initiative called See into the Future, which is all about skills, entrepreneurship and employability for the 21st century. This initiative is led by the British Council in wider Europe, a region that covers 15 countries, including Russia, Turkey, Kazakhstan and the Western Balkans, amongst others. It began life as a face-to-face conference which was held in Istanbul in February this year, organised by the British Council in partnership with the Council of Higher Education of the Republic of Turkey. And this conference brought together policymakers, business leaders and education professionals from Albania, Azerbaijan, Bosnia, Israel and a number of other countries across the wider Europe region. The idea of the conference was to discuss solutions for encouraging youth employment, developing 21st century skills and nurturing entrepreneurs for the future. The conference was a huge success, with over 70% of participants stating that they'd be interested in follow-up activity. And building on this success, we're leading up to a second face-to-face event, which will be held on the 18th and 19th of November in Astana, in Kazakhstan, to discuss similar themes, including how can industry and education providers better cooperate together, and how can we help young people make the right career choices and set them on the path to successful future careers. The conference is expected to attract around 300 policymakers, university and college leaders and business leaders. And as well as a face-to-face event, the programme is supported by a wide range of digital activity, including these online discussions. So let's go to the discussion then. So we'll be discussing are young people graduating with the skills businesses need, and what is it that businesses are looking for from graduates. So I'd like to take this opportunity to give the floor to our panellists and to introduce yourselves. Let's start first of all with Adina, who's in Israel. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Adina. I'm a third-year student in Israel for political science and business. I'm here at this conference actually because I interned at the British Council in Tel Aviv in Ramat Gan last year, and they approached me, asked me to come and give the opinion of the students.
Great, thanks Adina. Gary, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Good afternoon, good morning, or even good evening, everyone. My name is Gary Hayes. I'm British by birth, but I've lived for most of my life in the Netherlands, though recently 2 years in Russia and now 6 months in Kazakhstan. I've actually got a technical background, so chemistry degree, physics PhD. Although of relevance to this call might well be that for most of my jobs I haven't used directly either of those skills. I did though start technically. I started with Shell in Technology Centre and indeed worked for 30 years for Royal Dutch Shell, oil and gas company, in both management roles, business roles, and also global HR roles. So I've done a mixture of things. I have left about 5 years ago, and since then I've worked for New Zealand's biggest company, which is a dairy cooperative. I worked indeed for 2 years in Russia for an oil and gas company, private oil and gas company, and I've been, as I said, 6 months here in Kazakhstan with the Samruk Gazna group of companies, which is the sovereign wealth fund in Kazakhstan. And I've also consulted for various companies, including the European Space Agency. I've often been involved with either recruiting graduates or indeed helping graduates join companies. One of the jobs I had with Shell for 4 years was indeed as graduate recruitment manager for Shell in Europe. So I spent 4 years both attracting and selecting students for Shell. And as I say, I've worked with various graduate development programs through the years. I should also state, of course, I've got three children who themselves are either still studying or having studied, and have either got jobs or are looking for jobs. So my oldest daughter graduated in law, but has done nothing to do with the law, but has been a customer relations manager within Europe. My son's just graduated from international business studies and is looking for a job, and is wondering indeed himself what business they're looking for, and is it him? And finally, my youngest daughter is an eternal student and has just started yet another study. So I have also very personal interest in this topic.
Great, thank you, Gary. Let's move now to Zeynep. Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zeynep. I'm from Turkey, and I'm working at Kariyer.net, which is the leading online recruitment company in Turkey. We are currently hosting more than 18 million CV holders and more than 50,000 companies posting on our website for jobs. So, and I'm a marketing professional. I'm also willing to answer all the questions about how to find a job or what to do best to get the best positions.
Great, thank you, Zeynep. And now let's move to Almira, who I believe is in Kazakhstan.
Yes, hi, my name is Almira. I'm from Kazakhstan, and I work in the social sector at the Chamber of Entrepreneurs in Astana. And along with the traditional tasks of representing and lobbying interests of entrepreneurs, the Chamber also develops social dimension of entrepreneurship by bringing business community closer to local communities and to civil sectors such as education. And right now, my department is faced with the challenging task of acting as a system integrator and build an effective model of cooperation between business, vocational educational providers, and students. And our main focus here is vocational, post-secondary vocational education organizations.
Great, thank you, Almira. Let's get started then. So, first of all, what exactly are the skills that businesses are looking for, do we think? And let's see, do these vary in the different countries that our panelists are located in? Almira, perhaps you'd like to start by telling us a bit more about your insight into what businesses are looking for in Kazakhstan.
Yes, well, in Kazakhstan there is an interesting situation because we have major national industrial development strategies that are in place, and they all emphasize forced industrialization. And a number of industrial projects that are funded in Kazakhstan require skilled labor in construction, transportation, and such specialists like electricians, welders, auto mechanics. And also there is a growing need for services in hospitality and tourism. And our total population in Kazakhstan is 17 million, and working economically active population is 9 million people. So the industries and businesses are pretty much in constant hunger for skilled labor. And an interesting thing in Kazakhstan is also we are faced with an imbalance of supply and demand in the labor market. We have, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, we have an oversupply of specialists with general, non-specific, and liberal education, such as lawyers, economists, bankers, and the scarcity of qualified technical and vocational specialists, which is especially vivid right now when we are undergoing forced industrialization. Another challenge for us is the demography, that most technical specialists are of older generation, 50 plus. So those are the people who got education under the Soviet system. And in a few years, 10, 12 years for men, they will retire. And the younger generation shows little interest in vocational trades, as we can see. And another challenge is that with the integration of labor market within the economic space, Eurasian economic space, Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan, we're opening up our borders, and there will be a flow of skilled vocational specialists from Russia and Belarus. And this will also create a further imbalance in our labor market. And what our basically industries in Kazakhstan are required within the framework of forced industrialization is skilled, technical vocational specialists.
Okay, great. Thanks for that insight, Almira. Zeynep, can you tell us a bit more about the situation in Turkey?
Sure. Well, I will look at this question from another perspective. I think there are two types of skills that businesses are looking for. One type can be defined as soft skills, because I think in Turkey mostly, but in the world, of course, we're facing a time where the future, or even the near future, is really difficult to define precisely. Like, you cannot say that there will be, or I couldn't say that there will be an SEO expert demand in the market, but now I can say that people are looking for SEO experts. And I can say that now it's kind of like an IT specialist, but then in the future there will be in marketing departments. So I think that for technical and soft skills, we can look at the problem in those fields, let's say. So from technical point of view, yes, there are some positions that are currently opening, and there are nobody trained or educated for those positions. As I said, like in marketing, because I'm a marketing manager, I can say that like in marketing, it's really difficult to find anybody who knows anything about SEO or digital marketing even. Sometimes it's really difficult to find the right people for the position, because some positions can require more skills than any other company would require. So yes, some, like in Turkey, I can say that some marketing positions, specifically mostly IT positions, there are not many people trained for those positions. But on the other hand, if we say, if we take the soft skill set, like we can say people are looking for hardworking people. People are looking for people who actually will focus on the weaknesses side and improve themselves constantly. No matter what age are you, you have to focus on what I can do best, what am I best at, and what I can do more about my skills. So yes, I think that the skills needed for the businesses have to be reviewed as two types: soft skills and technical skills.
Okay, great, thanks. That's a really interesting point, actually, about hard and soft skills and the changing demands of the labour market. Gary, obviously, as you mentioned, recruitment, HR is an area you've been involved with in different areas over a period of some years. How do you see the situation at the moment? What are businesses looking for? What skills are they looking for?
Well, both my colleagues have covered the two main areas already, and but it also does indeed depend on which country we're in. I know we're talking about a particular area here, but I've also obviously worked or been busy in lots of different areas in the world, and it does depend where you are as to what business is looking for. Nevertheless, as both of my colleagues have said, that match on the one hand between technical specialism and how well can graduates do that, or how many graduates even there are to do that, and the soft skills part. Let me just build on something Almira said, because obviously at the moment I'm in Kazakhstan. Samruk Kazna is the sovereign wealth fund of Kazakhstan and still owns most of the nationalized industries in Kazakhstan, whether or not you look at the oil and gas, or you look at the chemicals, or the railways, or the post, or the mining companies. And indeed, we're also going through part of this forced industrialization, as Almira said, and indeed, using the word transformation, we're looking to change some of the ways in which these businesses are run and what we do. And part of it is indeed we have a shortage of technical skills. We're starting up a chemical industry in Kazakhstan from scratch almost, and where are those skills going to come from? And indeed, if we look at a lot of the people who want to come and work for us after university, or having been abroad and trained, have they been actually have they been studying the right things in terms of the positions we have? If I look at the soft skill side, I think indeed enthusiasm, willingness to develop, willingness to do some other things, a work ethic, which was also mentioned, is there. Some sort of capacity of thinking outside of what it is they've studied. And some very good things, which a lot of modern students have in terms of relationship skills and in terms of networking, in terms of working together. Those skills, I think, are much more developed now than they were maybe 10 years ago in many different countries. So there's positives as well as negatives, but even if I think back to the work that I was doing in Russia, where again, there weren't enough technical students, as I think Kira, there weren't enough technical students, and even the ones that were coming through, we were having to train much more than we would have done also 5 to 10 years ago. So even the ones that are studying technology in a number of different countries appear to be learning less in terms of the basics than they maybe were previously. So it's not only a numbers game in terms of are there enough people studying the things we want, but it's also what is the quality of the learning that they're doing. But this is not limited to Eastern Europe, it's also in Western Europe and in other parts of the world.
Thanks for that, Gary. Let's go and let's get a student perspective now and hear Adina. How do you feel? What do you think as a student in Israel? What do you think that businesses are looking for from you?
Okay, well, there's a few things. First of all, the main thing I'd say is experience, which I'm talking about also internships and also any experience you're able to gain as a student, if it's student jobs in the student union, for instance, or in the university, or previous experience, for instance, in Israel. Before you start the army, you have an option to take a gap year, or in the army, you have different positions that gain experience there. Also, what I try to bring to a job interview is something unique. I'm lucky. I was brought up in England, born in Canada, so I always have that unique thing to start with in the interview that gives me sort of a good starting position. But I think any other student also needs to find what's unique about them and just get the interview in their hands from the beginning. Also, good grades. Finishing university as well as possible is obviously very important, and leaving with letters of recommendation if it's from different professors or from different job experiences you've had as a student.
That's a really interesting point about promoting something unique about yourself, because I would certainly say in my experience, my USP, my unique selling point has definitely been that I'm a fluent Russian speaker, of which there aren't many in the UK. In fact, there aren't really that many people that have any foreign language competency. But I would say that at the same time in the UK, there's a definite feeling that languages are useful, they're helpful. International experience is something to be admired, but it needs to be supplemented by solid skills and by solid technical competency. So I think that's quite an interesting point. It'd be interesting to hear what our audience thinks. What is it that businesses are looking for? So please do get your questions in with the See Into the Future hashtag. We've got one comment through now, actually. A CBI study found that graduates are lacking in resilience and self-management. What do you think? So, I don't know who to pose that to. Shall I go to Zeynep, perhaps? Do you think that students are lacking skills in resilience and self-management?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not seeing that, actually. I would put it this way. I don't think they lack self-management, but I think they lack the information or experience what businesses are requesting from them. That's what I see in the new graduates. They when they graduate, they actually don't have much ideas about what is expected of them. So it makes it difficult for them to do or create some results that are satisfactory for everybody, for them and for the companies. So I think the match there is not knowing what to do. I think that will be how I put it. Also, can I add something for the previous comments? Okay, I would agree what Gary said and Almira said. I think, yes, we are also in Turkey, we are lacking the right match between the graduates' technical information, the technical backgrounds, and the company's requirements. But on the other hand, I can give you some information about what we see on the job matchings. In CareerNet, every month over 6 million applications are done. So when we review these matches, I can see that the backgrounds, the graduated subjects, are rarely matching the positions that they're applied. What I mean is engineers become sales people, or engineers become, like civil engineers become IT professionals, or I don't know. So the right match is seen rarely. We can see from our numbers that what we defined as right match is about only 20% between the person and the position. The rest is kind of like it happens with what is requested by the company and also what is defined right for the person. So the person chooses at what positions they want to work on, regardless of what subject they graduate from. So I think this is another subject to be discussed. So I think students need to see or define what they want to do perfectly, if they can do it, of course. Perfect is a big word, but they have to work on it. They have to know what they want to work, which field they will be happy to work on. That's another question that we have to keep asking ourselves.
And so do you think that they need to know that before they commence their studies? So before they commence their university education?
No, but I think they need to start asking that question right when they start universities, because that will shape at what kind of internships they will have, at what sectors they want to have their internships, or which fields they want to go into, or maybe even if they want to change the subject that they are studying right now. That could even happen. It happens a lot in Turkey. People can change subjects when they're in the second year or the third year even. So that's a question they have to keep asking themselves from the very first year. Okay. But of course the answer could be defined on the way.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I'm sure it is for many. This is a really interesting topic, actually, because I would certainly say, as somebody from the UK, most people I know, regardless of how ambitious they were, don't know what they want to do when they start university. Very, very few people go down a vocational path at the age of 18, or even, as Gary mentioned, I think one of your children trained in law. My brother also trained in law and then got to the end of his degree and decided that it was the absolute last thing he'd like to do. Not only is it incredibly, he originally wanted to be a barrister, not only is it incredibly expensive, extremely, like you need to have contacts to do well, it just wasn't for him. And I would say it's interesting to hear that there is this mismatch in Turkey as well, because I always had the impression that certainly in Europe there's much more of a focus on, if in Spain, for example, if you want to work in marketing, you probably will need to have a degree in marketing or some sort of official training, and it isn't the same at the moment. I would argue that it's not quite the same in the UK. Lots of people study humanities, languages, all different kinds of subjects. I think it's quite unusual for people to study things like engineering and then change course. Generally, I'd say I know that there's a lack of engineering students in the UK. they normally, if they study at undergraduate level, they do tend to pursue engineering careers. Gary, what's your take on this? Do you think it's important to know from the beginning, or do you think the soft skills and all the experience, the other skills that you get from studying at university can outweigh the technical skills?
It's a good question, because I certainly, agree with a lot of what Zainab was then saying. I think recruiters often want to ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? And some very focused, ambitious people know what they want, but I would say most don't. And the thing is, though, how many options are you keeping open? And what are you building such that you can make a choice? As Zainab said, engineers can do lots of different things, but historians will have trouble doing engineering. If you've studied technical skills, then the other things that gives you opens up a tremendous opportunity of different possibilities. The analytical skills and the numeric skills that you learn doing technical studies allows you to do an incredible range of things. The other way around is a bit more difficult, so you're keeping more options open. The problem is, though, in most universities, in most countries, technical studies are more difficult, or are seen as being more difficult, or you have to work more. So it's not necessary, I think, personally, to know exactly what it is you want, but in terms of if you want to keep some options open, then that depends on your choice. But indeed, there's a number of other things that you're learning as part of a university study, which are, I think, just as important in the future to business.
Almira, we've heard quite a bit about the situation in Kazakhstan, about the lack of technical skills, about the industrialization program, and we've talked about perhaps that students should be thinking from quite early on what they'd like to do and where they'd like to be. What role do you think universities or education providers should play in guiding students to the right career for them?
It's a very interesting question, because I just wanted to go back to the question that students lack resilience and self-management. Well, in my work, we work with a concrete segment of young people. Those are people who pursue post-secondary vocational studies. And the situation and educational structure in Kazakhstan is such that vocational occupations are undervalued in society. And most students go to vocational schools not because it was their first choice, because they dreamt to be an electrician or a welder, but because their grades were not good enough to pursue higher education. Mm-hmm. And in this case, we're left with a situation when a population of students who are not very good in their studies are forced to go to vocational education in order to get some kind of academic credentials. And in this case, the Chamber of Entrepreneurs, and we work closely with schools, and we work closely with vocational institutions to open up a project of career counseling in schools, so that students are given more choices and information about professions, not only students but their parents. Back to the question, what education providers can do to orient students towards career. I think education providers work too much with students, when in fact, at least in my country, the main focus should be on the parents of students, because eventually, even if a boy wants to be, for example, a barrister or a barman, his or her parent would want him to be a lawyer and an economist. And one of the main ways is to create a dialogue with the parents and explain the parents the situation on the market, and explain that the student, his son or girl, is gifted, but he will not become a lawyer, a good and successful lawyer, because he doesn't have the aptitude to the kind of job. And help parents to find the aptitude of a child. And also in this case, not only education providers should be active. It's a very good opportunity for job providers, for industries, for employers to step in and to be a part of the career counseling process. When the parents doesn't talk only to the director of the college or the university, but he talks to the director of the company, for example, or an oil company or an HR management of the company, and this person tells the parents and the child what kinds of career perspective the child will face in his or her company and what kind of education he should receive in order to be successful.
Okay, that's an interesting point, actually, the involvement of parents in the process of career planning. Let's ask Adina, to what extent have your family influenced your choices regarding study, careers?
Okay, well, first of all, in Israel, I think it's a bit different as we start university much later than the rest of Europe. For instance, I'm 25 in my third year of my BA, and I think I'm below average in the age. I think most people are actually a bit older than me, mainly because culture-wise, first of all, we have the army between the age of 18 to 20 or 21, 22 even, and afterwards we go on for, a lot of people go for traveling around the world for at least 6 months. So we do start later, and therefore, from a financial point of view, we're a bit more independent. That's financially. Me personally, I'm surrounded by a very supportive family who would have supported any decision I chose. Obviously, I was very motivated to get to university always. Like before, someone mentioned vocational studies. That wasn't an option for me, mainly because just of the area I'd grown up in, where everyone went to university or at least a college. I didn't even know about different options. It was just known you go to university when you're in your 20s. I know there are some parents that push more and try to get students to study different degrees that will lead to a certain job afterwards. Although in general, because we're older, we're much more independent, and the student arrives at university knowing that it's their choice what they're going to study, and they're focused and ready to start. You start when you're ready. You don't start when you're 18 because that's what you've been told to do. So once people start, normally they're more focused and more driven by themselves.
So that's quite an interesting comparison and an interesting international cultural context. We've got a couple of questions from the audience. I think I'll direct this to Zainab. We know that for some professions there is a bigger demand then how can businesses fast-track potential employees? So basically, how can, if we know that demand is exceeding supply, how can we bridge that gap? How can businesses bridge that gap?
Well, I understand this question as a talent management question. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Alexander is asking if he can offer more than what his employee is asking from him, what he can do. Well, I think he has a lot of options. I'm sure a lot more employees will be willing to let's see what Alexander or anybody who has more potential has to offer. I think what I would suggest, if I don't understand, if I correctly understand the question, I think he should explore what he can do more. He should present the results of what he can offer. If he's like a programmer, he can write more or a different subject or come up with a different, let's say, part of a program in his spare time, in like a demo or some kind, so that he can show his employee what he can do more or what ideas he has, and then seeing that, I think his employees would be willing to give him more responsibilities. If not, I think he can go on with another employee who would be willing to give him more responsibilities. I think that's a good position to be at.
Okay. In terms of talent management as a whole, are graduate programs popular in Turkey? Do they exist in Turkey?
Yes, they do. We have many graduate programs, like 1 year, 2 years. Many people actually, a lot of people, let's say, go outside of country to improve their language skills as well.
Mm-hmm.
Many people, as I said, when in Turkey, when you graduate from university, usually what happens is that maybe you are not sure what you're going to work at, or you want to improve yourself for the field that you want to work at. Like what I did was I graduated from an engineering field. I'm an industrial engineer, but instead of going to I wanted to work in the service field, service area. So what I did was I went on with a graduate program in a technical university again, and I learned more about IT. What can I do with the programs or computers? So my focus was I wanted to work in the information technologies part. That I used it for my position. So I wanted to be able to choose the industry that I work at.
Gary, I know that you mentioned that you've worked in graduate recruitment for Shell, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What was your whole experience of working in graduate recruitment?
You probably don't have enough time to talk about that. This was some time ago, and I think the situation has changed a little in some cases, but not in others. So for me, there was still a choice factor, and still a factor of some companies being able to choose students, and I think it's now very much the other way around. As Zainab just said, my advice to Alexander would be, if your own company, if you think you can do better and your own company doesn't see that, there'll be plenty of companies that can. So indeed, believe in your own talents and go for it would be my advice to him in that case. I'm going to link this also, though, to another question that has just come up, which is about whether or not people need to go for higher education.
Thank you.
Because indeed, this matching, is experience of working for companies better, or do people need to go for higher education? I would say that if you look at some of the millionaires and entrepreneurs around the world, many of them didn't really do that, but there are only a small number of people that you see. I think most businesses, rightly or wrongly, in order to choose who they're going to spend time getting to know more to see if they want to employ them, are going to use education as one of the checkpoints on paper or whatever. So, Adina also said it in terms of good results at college, university, whatever. That's still going to be, in almost every country I know, one of the things that employers use first off to decide, do they want to spend their time getting to know this applicant more than another applicant. And I also think you do learn other things, higher education, as we've talked about, some of the soft skills. You're also slightly older and have done some other things. I mean, both Adina and also Zainab talked about some of these other things that students can bring to a company and can offer to a company. So I'd link it to that as well. If I look at the situation now, say in Russia, as I've seen it in Kazakhstan, and in recruitment, it's still a question of whether or not we can find people with the skills that we think we want in the future, to build on those skills in terms of trying to hire people. The whole move in Kazakhstan of moving from sort of more government-owned industry into more market-driven, innovative industry requires a totally different form of management. And that's actually where the young people may well have an advantage. Linking back to the question of resilience and self-management, I would actually say that most of the students I meet nowadays are pretty good at self-management. It's probably their future bosses who could learn a few things about that.
I like that point. It's interesting though, this idea that students now have more choice. Do we not feel at the same time that students are increasingly having to go the extra mile to prove their worth? So it's no longer, we've assessed that you need a strong educational background if you want to do particularly well in certain fields. Beyond that, you also need to have work experience. You also need to have, for certain jobs, you need to have technical skills. So do we not feel that more and more pressure is being placed on students? Adina, what do you think about that point? Sorry, Adina, we can't hear you. Yeah.
Could you repeat the last part, please?
Just do you feel that more and more pressure is being placed on students to get work experience, to get their grades, and also to do this mostly for free? So in most countries, people are students are paying for their education, and then they're also expected to undertake generally unpaid internships. And it just, in general, the demands that are placed on students, are they not increasing, and they're not getting more and more?
Of course, definitely. As someone who's studying something from the social sciences, the feeling I got when I started my degree was I was told from the beginning, you're going to start your first degree, and just know you're going to have to carry on to your master's, to your second degree. It's something that's known. Everyone's got a first degree now here. It's something that doesn't make you unique, if we were talking about that before. And I've actually already started my master's degree in public policy as part of a special program where before I finish my BA, I start my MA actually, because of the pressure, knowing that I'm going to go out into the job field and be looking for a job, and everyone's the same as me. And there's a lot of pressure to make yourself stand out, to make yourself have better grades, have more experience than others. And again, not everyone is able to push themselves like that from a financial point of view. I've been lucky to find different jobs for students that allow me to carry on with my studies, and that are in the field. I have a lot of friends who are working as waiters or waitresses in different restaurants, which allows them financially to carry on with a degree, but doesn't give them necessarily the experience that companies high up are looking for. So definitely there's a lot of pressure, especially being 25 and needing to finish and look for a proper job and not being 18 again.
I just want to turn now to some more questions we've got from the audience. We've got one from Eka, I think it is. Talking about demographics, is there any attempts to maintain gender balance? I imagine that is. Are there, I think this is maybe a question for Gary perhaps, or Zainab. Have there been, or have you been aware of any policies within organisations you've worked in to promote gender balance, or preference being given to female or male candidates? Quite a controversial one, this. I don't know who wants to comment, maybe Zainab?
Well, I can talk about Turkey. I can say that organizations, yes, big organizations, especially big holding groups, especially, they try to keep a gender balance in the company because, of course, depending on the field, gender balance creates more creativity and more results. So yes, I think some of the companies try to do that. But it's really hard to say the ratio. I can say that the small companies would have difficulty to try to keep the balance. There are many companies in Turkey that are consisting of mostly or all of them are males, and I'm not sure they can do any other way because of the industry that they work on.
Mm-hmm. We've got another. Yeah, you can hear me. We've got another question now. What are the drivers for business to engage more with education providers? Gary, I don't know if you'd like to comment on this one.
Yeah, but can I just add something to the last question, because I think it's a good question. Clearly, it varies in different countries. But there are some very good business drivers why you would want to have that balance. I mean, one is, as a company, you would want to reflect what your customers are as well. And in many businesses, that gender mix is maybe even the other way. Maybe, you know, if you're selling some products, actually you have far more females who are your major customers rather than males. So there are some very good business reasons why you would want to reflect some sort of balance. You also should at least be reflecting the percentage gender balance and other diversity issues in the number of people who are available in a particular area. If you're one, and if you're not, then there's probably something wrong with your processes to begin with. And one of the things that a lot of major businesses try and do nowadays is at least make sure there are no unwanted biases in their processes, which there can be, such that there is opportunity for all. And the other thing, I definitely agree with Zainab, which is, you know, diversity in teams and in businesses makes much stronger business and much stronger teams than everyone thinking the same or having the same background or whatever. It's not only gender diversity; it's also other forms of diversity. The last thing I'll say, but this is also based on experience a long time ago, when I was recruiting engineers many years ago, often the best engineers were actually women. And that's because they've made a very conscious decision to study engineering, whereas for a number of boys in those days, it was just something they did without thinking about it too much. So actually, there was a tremendous business reason to try and get those in. But I mean, life's changed a bit since then, and indeed in different countries that's different. Back to the question you asked.
Actually, I just wonder if I could just ask Almira for her perspective on this, on the whole diversity issue from Kazakhstan. Just is okay. Almira, do you want to?
In terms of diversity, well, in terms of diversity, I can tell, like, from the point of view of an office worker, like in sectors, in services, in offices, mostly women. You can say mid-management in the lower levels, mostly women. Technical occupations, of course, you can see the gender disbalance. There are more males than females. But in offices, in services, the gender disbalance is the other way. You can see a lot more women. Top management positions, again, you can see the predominance of males. But in general, women are very active on the job market, very active.
Okay. And maybe I could also get your perspective on this question on what are the drivers for businesses to engage, and then we'll move on to Gary. Why do you think businesses should want to engage with education providers? And do you have any examples of seeing that in your work in Kazakhstan?
Well, the main driver for a business to engage with education providers is the fact that in Kazakhstan, for example, vocational education is mostly free. And the main driver is the opportunity to prepare a workforce for his or her specific industry for practical free. If you're a construction company, you go and establish contacts with a college, construction college. And you get a group of students who would work in your company, who would have internship get on the job training in your company, and after they graduate, you can hire them. So basically, you save your time, you save energy, and you save resources to get a trained workforce. So this is the main driver for businesses to engage with education providers. Back to the question, I'm not sure if I heard it correctly. The question was, what happens? What can we do if demand surpasses supply, right? On the labor market, what businesses can do. Well, in this case, I think it's very important to develop a good workforce anticipation system. So a system that can monitor and forecast labor market requirements for the future, for 3-year, 5-year terms. And in this case, businesses can anticipate what kind of specialists they need in advance and start the process of preparing the specialists 3 years in advance before they actually will need those specialists. And an example is in Kazakhstan, in Astana, we have a big education organization in Nazarbayev University. And back then I worked for an education organization that Bolashak, that it's a big education grant provider in Kazakhstan. And Nazarbayev University would come to our organization and say, in 2017 we'll start a medical school. And they came to our organization in 2012 and 2013. And they said, we'll build an education, a medical school. And we need Kazakh medical specialists who would graduate from the universities in the United States, in UK, in China, in Korea. Please help us. And they would draft a program. They would help us to get students who would, so they would actually start the process of preparing the specialists for their organization, for their specific schools, 4 years in advance. This is how businesses, many businesses are working right now. Anticipation system and the opportunity to participate, to prepare workforce for limited cost.
So it's all about planning, basically, and anticipation.
It's all about planning and anticipation, right?
Because we've had one more question from the audience. Are we teaching professions, or are we training people in professions that no longer exist or that do not exist? I don't know who'd like to give their perspective on that. Adina, I don't know, do you see that amongst your peers?
I'm not sure if I can really answer that. The only thing I can do is sort of connect it to what I mentioned before, where in social sciences it's known that we don't finish with a profession. So you're finishing your degree and you're not necessarily going out into the job market into something specific, which is a problem, of course, but I'm not sure I can give more of an insight into that. I'm sorry.
Gary, let's get back to you. Sorry, I interrupted you before. On the drivers for businesses. And what more can businesses do?
What more can businesses do?
Yes.
So they're doing a variety of things at the moment, which is, I mean, as we just heard from Almira, I'll start in Kazakhstan. So the Samruk Kazakh group of companies has also, as Almira knows, been involved in the so-called dual training scheme, whereby the companies give practical experience to vocational students, such that instead of just around the country doing theoretical work, they can actually do hands-on work. And why are we doing this? Okay, there is a social responsibility aspect, and I think that's what a lot of businesses in lots of different countries do. But there is exactly the business reason that Elvira said, in terms of being able to see students in action, and such that students with the skills we want will come and work for us. So there is that aspect. In a number of countries around the world, of course, business works very much with educational establishments, both to help educational establishments remain relevant in their teaching, such that indeed they have up-to-date material, they know what's happening in industry. People come and give lectures or help run courses or do things like that anyway, such that students, but also those teaching them, know what is current, what is needed, what is happening. So that's one of the things that I see in some countries and maybe less in other countries. Your experience of Russia, I certainly saw that a bit less in Russia. Although again, we worked with a lot of universities when I was working for one of the oil and gas companies in Russia. But indeed, the other thing, and that's I guess through government, And the link between, because we're talking about educational establishments and business, but obviously governments in many countries play an important role here. And Alvina talked about the Bolishak program, for example, where Kazakhstani students go abroad to study and then come back in the country and are supposed to work in their own areas. But nevertheless choose the topics that they want to study themselves, which has led to some of the imbalance and some of the difficulty for some of the brightest students coming back into the country to get jobs in those areas. So there's actually certainly a three-way triangle with government in terms of how government can support educational establishments, but also industry and vice versa, in terms of making sure that teaching and the level of teaching is relevant for the businesses in those countries.
Thank you. Got one final question from the audience, then I'll give you a minute each to round up on today's discussion. I don't know if Amira, would you like to take this one? Should businesses take more responsibility for providing paid work placements?
So this is an interesting question because mostly businesses are willing to pay a minimal wage to students. Within a vocational education, it is stipulated that students who are taking on-the-job training, basic training, they're not paid. But once they reach a certain level and they actually do have added value, their work does have added value in the process, in this case they are paid, and businesses are willing to pay. So it's a very good question. And can I go back to the question about professions that no longer exist?
Yeah, very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a situation in Kazakhstan mostly because we have a very rigid system of regulations in the sphere of education. And we have this huge complex that is called standards of education. And this is a very elaborated big document for every level of education. And it's very hard to change those documents. And these standards of education haven't been updated for a long time. And students in vocational institutions end up studying technologies and that no longer exist. Getting knowledge that also does no longer exist. And eventually when they graduate and go to the industry, their knowledge is not required. So that's about the professions that no longer exist. A very good question. It's a very big issue in Kazakhstan. Thank you.
Thank you. Zainab, we've had just one more comment through, well, question. Maybe it's better to have work experience first and after, so pre and post university, so that the student has a better understanding of what they're studying and whether it is right for them. Do you think that's a good idea?
Yes, I would agree. That would be a difficult thing to do, but I would agree. That would be more beneficial for the person and for the companies as well, because I think every person makes a difference in the company. And if that person is at the right position for himself, he excels at the results. So yes, I would agree that would be a better way. But I don't know if every country, if everybody can do that. Like in Turkey, it's really difficult to find a job that you would be interested in if you're not a university student or university graduate. So, well, you have to see if you can find a position that you'll be willing to work, and of course, if the company would be willing to hire you, and then you can go on to university. That will be a nice way to go, I think.
And we've got 1 more minute left of our discussion. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Let's just see if we can very quickly sum up. So, Zainab, what are businesses looking for from graduates?
I can say that they want to see more willing people. They want to see how the graduates will put into work, what they will put into work, so that company will benefit from having this employee in his company. That's what they want to see.
Thank you. Adina, what do you think businesses are looking for from you?
First of all, I've learned a lot here from this conference. But definitely experience, focus, being driven. That's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
First, there's lots of good news because lots of students have lots of good things nowadays that they didn't have in the past. Networking skills, communications, IT savvy, languages, all those sorts of things. But what we're additionally looking for is indeed enthusiasm, willingness to learn, willingness to develop, and work ethic.
And Almira?
Yes, yes, businesses need hard skills and both soft skills, that it was said in the beginning, but also businesses require willingness to further, from the students, from the young graduates, willingness to further their training and the discipline to work and not to ask for too much right after they graduate. Many graduates, they expect high salaries, whole package, and they're not willing to. They do not understand that when they come to work, very often they have this credit that they have to work, and after that they will get financial compensation for their work. Thank you.
So, thank you. So it sounds like across the region, across the board, it's all about willingness to learn, willingness to work hard, willingness to seek out the right opportunities for you and which will be beneficial for the companies, a positive attitude, and just that readiness to enter the world of work. Thank you, everyone. Again, thanks to the panelists for participating. Thanks to the audience for watching. Thank you, and goodbye.